Hello and welcome to this SlimDevOps episode 35. This was originally recorded or streamed on twitch.tv/SlimDevOps on the 24th of February. If you would like to join these sessions interactively, then do head over to twitch.tv/SlimDevOps so you can join the rest of the community in these sessions. We're joined this week by Brendan. So hello, Brendan and Peter. How you doing, Pete?
I am doing great. Hey, Brendan, how are you doing?
Oh, I can't complain too much. Doing okay. Had a great day of weather yesterday
Nice.
where I live on the east coast of the U.S. And then it's cold again today. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, they're cutting down tree limbs outside of my house, so if I disappear automatically, it's not Firefox crashing at this time. It's trees crashing down. So,
And also hello to Big Pod and Takov and Esme and Eric. Hello, welcome back, everyone. So, Pete, what have you been up to recently?
I have been doing some minification stuff, actually. So I've been working on a blog post, which I hope to put up on community.slim.ai within the next couple of days. That kind of slims the photo app, that Nuxt app that we've been building. So does kind of a walkthrough of that. It's given me a chance to play around with a few other kind of slimming techniques in addition to Docker Slim. So that's been kind of interesting and fun to see, and play around with a couple different vulnerability scanners. So I've been kind of trying to go deep on slimming that app, and it's been pretty interesting. A few gotchas with Nuxt, putting that into a container and slimming that. Docker Slim definitely wants to kind of take some things out that Nuxt needs, and it was kind of an interesting view into some of the modern web dev techniques, so lazy loading images and all that kind of stuff that make for a really nice modern UI. Those can be a little challenging when you're kind of doing the container slimming. So I've been learning that. That's been pretty cool. What have you been up to?
Well, just this moment, Big Pod pointed out that the stream was dropping out a little bit. Hopefully that's under control now. So I was just live tweaking the bitrate settings to compensate for what was a wobble on Twitch's end by the looks of it. But aside from that, I've been doing some minification stuff as well. And I've also been dabbling with virtual machines.
Okay.
So on the minification side of things, we've started doing with the help of Lindsay, who's recently joined us here. We've been doing dev group interviews. So we did one I think 2 weeks ago, which was a look at sort of developer challenges, the challenges that developers are facing, deploying their apps to, using containers in the cloud to deploy their apps, to get an understanding on where the rough edges are and where we can help. And just earlier today we were doing one where we showed off a new feature of the Slim.AI platform, which is the minification feature, which we've obviously Docker Slim, we talk about that all the time and what that can do, but now it's landing in the platform. So if you want to have a play with that, you can go to portal.slim.dev and sign up there and have a play. Those, if you're not on the platform, get on the platform, because you'll get notified about these in the future as well. So if you want to get like an insider's view on what we're working on, what features we're adding, or participate in feedback sessions, then join the platform and we'll be in touch for the next round of these that we do.
Awesome. And I think we'll be demoing that in Discord. So if you're not in our Discord, please join our Discord. And next week sometime we'll kind of give the people in the Discord a preview of that minification feature using this Nuxt app. So I think it's all going to kind of come together. Little Node.js example. I saw Big Pod thinks that his frame rate was actually dropping out because of npm install, which is very relevant to
it wasn't just
Node
Big Pod.
image,
I did get notified by Twitch something was up, so I was compensating. I was moving all the surplus energy to the rear shields.
All right, nice. Everybody stop npm install. The internet can't handle it. So well, cool. Brendan, what have you been up to? You guys are doing hackathon, is that right?
We are, yeah. GitLab, we're in the middle of a hackathon, which we do every quarter, where we get the community together to kind of go, against a whole bunch of different things, right? That we might, want issues that are for new people to contribute to, or documentation issues, all kinds of different things. And this time we're really focused on making sure that folks can have an easy time contributing to GitLab. We recently added the ability to spin up we call it the GDK, the GitLab Development Kit, inside of a Git pod container. So we've got a lot of folks trying that out for the first time. So yeah, that's been good. And then personally, I've been doing a lot of not as useful things. I've been leaning into my useless is not worthless mentality that I was taught by a fellow developer advocate.
I like that.
Years ago. And I've been spending time decreasing the number of NPM installs I need to do by learning Go, which is new for me because I'm used to a lot of NPM install and JavaScript. So I learned Go. I built a Tio Bruno bot, which if you have small children, you've encountered, I'm sure, the Disney movie Encanto. And there's a character called Tio Bruno that we don't talk about, and so the bot basically tells you not to talk about him. But I wrote it in Go and got to learn how Go works on stream, so that was fun.
Nice. That sounds super fun. Yeah, I got to see the Tio Bruno bot, and we talked about it a little bit on our stream last week, and asked people to go over to your stream and follow, so they can kind of follow along the Tio Bruno bot builder. So pretty fun if you guys can want to watch Brendan on stream. It's twitch.tv/O'Leary Crew. Is that where you are?
Correct. Yep, exactly. Cool. Yeah, you can follow along. I've got some other things I want to build coming up soon, so feel free to come by and check it out. I wanted to build something, and then I could tell my kids what I was doing, and they could connect it to their lives which is basically watching Encanto once a day on average.
We've only seen it once here.
It really gets stuck in your head on that 15th viewing.
Yeah, the one that flooded our brains was the Frozen films. I've seen that more times than I care for at this point. We've put a link to Brendan's channel in the chat, and we had that up on screen there for just a moment as well. So if you want to head over there and follow Brendan, you can find out what cool stuff Brendan's up to. So what we up to today then, Pete?
So we are actually going to do some CI building, some container CI building. So I, of course, right as we were about to do this, I lost my Firefox. So I just need to get reset up here real quick. But so I think people who were following along in the office hours last week would know that, we finally got everything working. In our app. It was my own silly little mistake that kind of was preventing the very last thing from working, which is that you actually have to commit your PostgreSQL calls in your backend app when you're doing Python. So that was something I didn't realize, but of course we got that fixed. So yeah, if we look over at the browser, we can kind of see the finished version of the app. Hopefully that's working for us. So, Brendan, I think we were telling you, that we've been working on this photo app, and we started with sort of this monolithic Python application that was pretty janky, and as the chat would call out for us, wasn't much of an app. And we've since kind of built it into a new thing. We moved the front end over to Node and Nuxt, really nice modern UI framework using Beautify, really nice developer experience with that. We kept the backend in sort of a Python Flask because it's just now a simple API that just delivers JSON and talks to a database. We've got it all working with Docker Compose. We spun up a Postgres database to kind of handle all of our data calls. And then even last week, Martin went through and put a Nginx reverse proxy on it that we can use. So we have this all working, kind of beautifully in Docker Compose. And we have, we always upload images that are, either T cookies or swag, and of course we always categorize those. And so if I'm uploading an image here, I just uploaded my cookie image, And now I can see that, I've got some tea and some swag and some swag, but there's the cookie image that I just uploaded, and that's writing to the database. So we're kind of calling this app done. Now we need to like figure out how to get it out to the world. And we thought, what better thing? We're having you come on stream with us. So let's kind of go through and build a container pipeline on GitLab. So that's kind of what we were thinking we would do today. I don't think we'll get through too much. I don't think we'll have the sort of full app running in the cloud, but I thought maybe we'd just kind of walk through this tutorial that we have up at the Slim.AI blog, teaches people how to set up a container pipeline on GitLab. And we'll just see if we can get kind of the hello world version in this app kind of running. People have questions, ideas, thoughts. There's certainly a few things that we could do to improve our shipping process. But, I think this will be a good first step and set us up for success as we kind of go to ship our app up to the cloud. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Cool. Awesome. So I guess before we get started, let's just like talk about CI a little bit and, sort of GitLab in general. Now you guys were pioneers in this space. You sort of invented this category. You've since sort of branched into continuous deployment. Obviously, you have the source code kind of version control management. And now I feel like you guys do everything now. So tell us a little bit about your journey there, like why CI is so important to GitLab, like why it's so important to developers, what it does for you, why it's important to set up.
Sure. Yeah. It's a great question. So yeah, GitLab obviously started life as, a Git, place to host your Git data. The name kind of belies that. And it was, okay, we're going to have this idea of having an open source place that you can do that. And that way everyone can contribute to the tools that you're using. Makes a lot of sense. And then there was this time when like the building and packaging of GitLab was becoming kind of onerous. And our co-founder DZ decided, I'm going to just write a little thing where I can just have this be automated, right? And at the time there were, there's other automation and CI out there, but keeping that kind of fed and watered was tough. We also had a great, I always like to say that our time to market with this was right because it was as Docker had kind of emerged as the winning platform for, containerization. And so it was also built, GitLab CI was built kind of Docker first, which is a huge advantage that we had. That was, you mostly have to give it up to timing. You can't just say we were that smart. So for those reasons, we kind of built this Docker first CI tool that could, do the building and packaging of GitLab. And then we had another individual, Camille from the open source community, contribute this GitLab runner to it to allow it to run jobs like on any platform, because the runner was written in Go instead of in our kind of native Ruby that most of GitLab is in or was in. And that kind of brought off a whole new, set of ideas for what it could be. And we ended up integrating them together, which was a whole discussion. And that's what kind of led to the expansion you were just kind of alluding to, Peter. Is like once you're doing source control and CI, it really makes a lot of sense to say, okay, how are we going to be able to do the whole DevOps lifecycle, right? Because we want to do deployments too. And that can, the line between CI and CD can be kind of blurry. And then, once we're deploying, why wouldn't we want to monitor that in production and understand, how changes have really impacted the production systems and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's a long way of saying that CI was kind of the thing that turned GitLab or started the turning GitLab from just a Git tool to a full-fledged tool for the entire DevOps lifecycle. And yeah, as you alluded to, we ended up, kind of leading the industry in this Docker-based CI, and it's been really great. It's the thing that brought me to GitLab as a user originally, is CI.
Specifically the CI
and then it's also
tooling.
the CI tooling was what brought me. Like I was using other products and needed something to do quick and easy CI, and I ran into GitLab, started using it. And then I had the advantage of, before I was a developer evangelist, I actually was a product manager for our CI piece. So it's very near and dear to my heart.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll say there is something kind of like magic about it. I'll say I was like walking through this tutorial and prep, and I made a commit on my local desktop, and I bumped over, and while I was still setting things up, all of a sudden the CI pipeline was kicking off and things were rebuilding, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even expect that to work, and all of that. So it is a pretty cool thing once you get the whole system kind of working. It makes you feel really fluid.
We when I was working at Canonical, we set up GitLab instances in the production cluster that Canonical sort of runs the engineering on, and we set that up specific. I was managing the robotics team at the time, and it was the only reliable way we could build a very comprehensive ROS, the robot operating system, and have all of those moving parts and dependencies taken care of and not having nightmare-inducing evenings at the same time.
Yeah.
So we tried all sorts of things, and GitLab CI was light years ahead of everything else.
Nice. Well, cool. Why don't we jump into it? We can look at the browser. So just as a reminder, sort of where we're going to go. So we have I think the thing that makes the most sense for us where we are with our app is to kind of just focus on our backend service, which is this Python Flask service, and it's already in a Docker container, so we're pretty good there. And we're going to kind of follow this pattern of, sort of having the source control, setting up GitLab. We have some testing that's kind of baked into this tutorial. So we had a pretty healthy, debate or, session on testing in our Discord. So I know that's near and dear to everybody's heart. Everybody loves writing tests, and they're everybody's favorite thing to do. And everybody wants 100% test coverage for all of their stuff. No, that was not the case. Most people don't like writing tests, but we have a few tests here. And then we're going to get it all to deploy to Google Cloud. As I mentioned in the Discord, for people who weren't watching, if you're going to do this demo, I would suggest that you do the kind of Google Cloud steps on your own ahead of time. There's just kind of like a lot of setup. There's a lot of sort of secrets and account management and type stuff like that. I've already done all of that, so we're not going to kind of do that on stream. We're going to kind of focus in on, we'll start with this simple web app, Python application, which is already built for us. But we're going to start in on kind of creating this pipeline. So here I am in GitLab, and I've created my, project, and I have the source code repository, and so I've pushed a few sort of things up there already, including the app and my Docker file. But the first thing, Brendan, I'm going to have to do, right, is kind of build out this GitLab CI.yaml. Is that right? That's sort of the thing that drives everything in the CI pipeline.
Yeah, that's the central way to define the pipeline as code. And so that's something I didn't even get into. It's something, again, I think we take for granted today. I certainly do, because I didn't even talk about it. But the key is that GitLab CI YAML, because that's going to allow you to define the entire pipeline in code, and that way you can version it and change it and control the changes of it just like anything else in the project. And so that's why we strongly believe in pipeline as code rather than pointing and clicking a lot of things in some user interface.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and so when you're working with sort of your team and stuff like that, if somebody's going to kind of change the pipeline, that's going to go through a PR process, and that's going to be reviewed just like any other piece of code that you have in your system.
Exactly.
Interesting. Very cool. Awesome. Well, we can bump over to the browser maybe, Martin, and it might just be a little easier the IDE, it might be a little easier to see this. So what we're doing, we're setting up these variables, first of all. So we're just going to give the service a name, which I'm calling GitLab CI test. And then we have some components here to set up like which our default image is, that we're going to do some updates. And obviously we're going to want to like install our Python environment as we're going through. And here we're defining our stages, right? So in this one, we just have a very simple test, deploy, and notify set of stages. So the test runs sort of our test suite, deploy actually pushes it up to Google Cloud with those connections, and then notify sends me an email as to how the pipeline went. And then here we're defining what those things are, right? So we have the test. In this case, we've set up a PyTest, a little Python library for testing. We have kind of a cheap, really, really bad test called test.hello.py, which really doesn't do a whole lot of anything other than, see if the backend is actually sending a message of hello with a W. I'm not sure if that was a typo on my side or someone else's side, or if we just pronounce hello as hello, but that's all we do. And then we push out a couple artifacts, mostly test reports and kind of coverage, so that we're tracking that and we know what's going on. Down here, we are basically defining another stage of deploy, which requires tests to have already written. So this is just ensuring that our tests are passing before we move on to the deploy side. I'm not too sure I fully understand exactly everything that's happening here, but we're basically using the Google Cloud SDK and sending a container to it, a Docker container to it, right?
Yeah, I can walk us through that a little.
Sure.
So first, the only main, that means that it's only going to run on the branch that's called main. So we're not going to deploy ever from branch, because the idea of GitLab CI is you're going to run the pipeline on any commit, right, to any branch. And so we want to run those tests, like you said. You could just be playing around and messing with something, but if you're pushing, we want to run those tests and give you feedback as to if they're passing or not. But we obviously don't want to deploy from every branch. We want to only deploy when something's merged into the main branch. So that's that part. And then the image. So this is a key thing. I kind of alluded to it earlier, right? Every one of these things, well, by default, there's other ways to run GitLab CI, but by default, and if you're using GitLab.com and our shared runners, the idea is it's just going to run inside of a Docker container, right? So that means you have to give a base Docker container as to where to run, right? And so you can have a default one at the top level of the file that says, hey, run in this container always. Or you can say, for this job, run in a different container. So this one specifically is saying, I'm going to grab this container that already has the Google Cloud SDK in it, because we know we're going to be pushing to Google Cloud. And then the services idea, that's the idea. Docker services is actually a Docker term. But we're actually going to run that Docker image, Docker dind, which I'll explain in a second. We're going to run that side by side and connect it to the Google Cloud SDK image. Okay. And dind stands for Docker in Docker.
Yes.
So this allows us to have a Docker socket available as we're doing this. And so I'm assuming we're going to build a Docker image below. G-Cloud build, right? And so as you're building that Docker image, having that service there lets the image we're building inside of have access to Docker. And then the other thing you would maybe use that for is, like, let's say you were running a test suite that required a database, right? Like maybe you had a real test that expected a blank database, ran your migrations, checked something, ran a bunch of API calls, and then checked that the database reflected what you expected. Something, some integrated tests like that. You can run a Postgres service as another service that goes along with the container, or something like that. So that's those three things.
Cool. Well, we do have a Postgres database. Yeah.
We have a question as well. So Graham asks, these arrays lists in the script blocks, does this YAML format also work with multi-line strings? And if so, is there any advantage to specifying each line in the script in YAML's array format?
I think that it does work with multi-line strings, I believe. I'd want to double check it. And so is there an advantage in the array format? No, not really. It just kind of gives you I don't know. This is an opinion, I guess, but gives you a very clear sense of, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. Of course, if you had a multi-line string, it would too. A lot of times what you'll see people do too is like, maybe we're hitting the limit here for this script of like number of things I want to see. And I might instead have, a build.sh script that I use locally and use in CI to build something. And so then you might only end up with one line, right? But it actually calls another script. that
Sure.
does the build. That's a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
Once you started to get into a larger project, and you might say, hey, we want to make sure that when we're building it locally and in CI, it's the same way. So let's write one script that they both use.
Yeah.
Got it.
And Big Pod, who's on our engineering team, points out that with the array approach, it's also better up for breaking up what happens in the logs.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. And we also record the time for each of those lines too. So you also get timing in the logs. Because again, once you get a big enough project, how long it takes for CI to run becomes a thing you care about.
Indeed.
Right, of course. Yeah, and it looks like our podcast, I think you were talking about sort of the custom scripts. Looks like Eric was asking, I assume we can supply a custom script in the script field. So basically we could kind of like put together a lot of these different commands and like save them in a script, save that in your repo, and then kind of use that as your build path.
Exactly. Kind of like, if you were using make, right, you would just say make install or make build. You could also just have your own script that runs them.
Cool. Nice. Well, we already have some optimizations for our GitLab YAML. Then we can start putting together some scripts, and PR's welcome, although I don't have this one up yet. So cool. All right. Well, so we'll move on. So this script, this set of commands, though, is just basically, this is doing a lot of sort of Google Cloud authentication, and it's passing some sort of API secret keys back, and basically calling then to our infrastructure to Google Cloud Run and to deploy there, basically. So that was, in my experience thus far, that's been the hardest part of this whole thing. Like setting up the CI on GitLab was super, super easy. Setting up Google Cloud was like easy from the console, you kind of set it up, but getting the kind of like handoff between the two was like the thing that caused me the most problems as I was kind of going through this blog post. So not sure if other people had the same experience, but please share. So
yeah, that definitely can be a gotcha. It's like the a greatest strength, greatest weakness kind of thing here is these, again, this is running in a Docker container that only exists for the time that it's running, and then it gets thrown away. And in fact, on .com, we even segmented more. We create a brand new VM, put Docker on it, put you inside a Docker container, and then destroy that VM as soon as the job's done. Which is like, hey, that's really great. That like feels really secure and like super clean. But then you go, oh wait, I'm used to like my laptop that has everything and is authenticated and like I don't need to think about it, right?
Right.
And so it's like we force you into this like cattle mentality instead of pets, which is like painful. But then once you do it, you're like, oh, this is okay. I get it. Yeah. And it's true that sometimes people do have more of a pet-based runner. So you can actually you can run the GitLab runner yourself. So a pattern that a lot of people will do sometimes, like here we're authenticating to Google Cloud through this key, right? But let's say you're in a VPC that didn't allow for that, right? And you had to actually run a job inside the VPC. The beauty of the GitLab runner is you can install the runner agent inside that VPC, like on Bash and host or something, and it calls out to GitLab looking for updates. GitLab does not push in then, right? And so you don't have to like open a hole in your firewall or anything. You can have an agent inside your network where it is controlled, right, completely by you. So you have that flexibility. Like the silly example I give there is like I have a thing called a Pi hole at home. It's a Raspberry Pi that runs like ad blocking software, and I of course administer that as code because I'm me. And it's running a GitLab runner. So my code for it's on GitLab.com, but whenever I change it, it pulls down the latest code and runs it. But GitLab.com has no idea about my network or anything. It doesn't have any access to my network. So you can do it that other way, but the beauty of forcing you to not is like, oh, now you have to really understand like what is the things that are required to get this build and deploy done. And not like, oh no, my laptop took a swim in some soda from a kid and now I don't know how to deploy anymore. Yes,
that sounds familiar. Yeah, I've been wanting to mess around with that. And I know that we've been getting a ton of traction on like kind of Docker containers and Raspberry Pis and stuff like that. So Martin, I think like that might be sort of a future stream. Maybe we set up an array of Raspberry Pis and see if we can start shipping Docker containers there, maybe using GitLab.
If only we knew somebody with 35 Raspberry Pis.
That number goes up every single time.
35, Martin, is the number?
This.
Yeah,
Wow.
35. Yeah.
Where's the closest one, though? Do you have one you can grab?
I have
I beat Martin to it. I had him sit on my desk. Oh, okay.
Mine's a compute module.
Oh, nice.
Feels like we're in the Wild West. Quick draw Raspberry Pi.
Is that the new measure
But the
of
model was critical.
geek cred is how quickly you can place your hands on a Raspberry Pi.
And that's how we did a cowboy themed stream. Nice. All right, cool. So we've got one final stage, which is just notify, which I think kind of comes baked into some of the pipelines. So I know I've been getting a lot of emails as I've been kind of like running through this. So that pretty much is our CI. So pretty simple setup and all good. We can take a quick look. So like I said, these apps are kind of just toy apps that we set up that are set up in this tutorial that we have on Slim.AI, kind of back to that idea of the app's not super important for some of these tutorials that we're doing. Like I said, the test isn't really that interesting either. The Docker file in the tutorial is actually a multi-stage build, which is kind of interesting. We haven't really played around with those too much just yet, but again, it'll look pretty straightforward to most of the Python examples that we've done on stream. So, with this, we can kind of get things sort of set up. So, Martin, if you bump over to the web browser, I've done a couple things. There was one thing I couldn't quite, this is the stage that I was having a little bit of trouble with, but I have the pipeline all set up. And so I have it set up for the branch main. And I have these variables that I have to put in, which are these GCP secret keys. And this is the part of the stream where I do my best to try not to dox myself or give away my super secret valuable keys to anybody who might be out there crypto mining on my GCP free instance or anything, but please be respectful. No. There are ways to set up these variables sort of across the entire project. I know down here in the settings CD section, I just wasn't able to get those to work. I don't know if it was a formatting issue or something with the service key that I was using, but anyway, I know it works this way. So you can go from there. So now I'm just going to click Run Pipeline, and that is going to kick off. And I get this kind of neat screen, which is going to show me. I'll zoom in for anybody that's trying to see this on screen. Hopefully people can see. So right now the test is running in the background, and I can even click here and see what's going on. So, so Brendan, this is like you were saying, this is basically spinning up the Docker container to run the pipeline using that default that I defined in my previous in the YAML file, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you can see it. You can see this, blue one.sharedrunnersmanager.gitlab.com, right? This is our shared runner infrastructure that exists on .com. Is where it's it's actually creating a new machine and then adding Docker to it and pulling that image right now to prepare a completely clear and fresh environment. And then once that exists, it'll clone automatically and then run those steps of the script that we specified in this particular job.
Okay. Oh, now it's doing some stuff. It looks like our tests passed. Oh, and that's kind of interesting. It actually ran so this app2 file was actually something that I put there. That's actually our backend for the photo app. So it looks like that actually is doing something in the tests, should be running. So, okay, so that succeeded, no problem. Let me go back to the pipelines here. See if I can get this to... So this one's still running. So now we're kind of on to this deploy phase. So we've completed our test. We have our app sort of spun up, and now we're deploying, and this is going to our sort of Google Cloud instance. And if I bump over here to my Google Cloud platform, I can actually see that now I've got some API calls happening. So this is actually the runner starting to hit my Google Cloud APIs. and I can actually see the deploy starting to happen both on the side of Google Cloud, but also on the side of GitLab, which is now pulling the Google Cloud SDK.
Yep.
Cool.
And if you go back here, I'll point one other thing out that we haven't talked about yet. If you just go back one to the pipeline page, which is, we talked about these jobs and stages, but I didn't really define them well. If you click on the running pipeline, just one more there.
Oops.
That got to the commit that's running. But yeah, right there. So we have these columns of stages, right? Test, deploy, notify, and then the jobs happen to be named the same thing. Test, deploy, and notify. But they can be named different things, right? So the difference here is stages, that all of the jobs in a stage will run in parallel, and then stages will run sequentially, right? So maybe you have different kinds of tests, right? Like maybe you have some unit tests, maybe you have like RSpec tests, or you have, different, you might have 3 test jobs that do, linting and testing and a number of different things. And those can run maybe in parallel. And then, once all of those have finished, then move on to deploy. So like if we, in fact, do you want to like go to like the most complex of pipelines? If you go, we didn't plan this, but if you go to gitlab.com/ gitlab-org/GitLab, you can see how GitLab uses GitLab.
/GitLab. Oh,
you can see how GitLab uses GitLab to build GitLab, which is like the most meta you can possibly get. So if you go to a pipeline here, so this is the GitLab code base, right? Which is this rather large, mostly Ruby on Rails monolith. Yeah. But a lot
about
of things.
46 gigs of files. No
big
it's
deal. Not. It's using 87 terabytes of storage. It's been around. It's come around. But if you go to CI/CD and you go to pipelines and just open up, just click on whatever. There'll be some running right now, I'm sure. They're always running.
Cool.
You just click on one of those, like on created or skipped or running. Yeah, you can see a much more complex web of jobs. So there's 172 jobs that are going to run. And you can see here we have a sync stage, prepare, build images, fixtures. So this is like, obviously a much larger, mature product that's running a lot of different things and running them in parallel and things that are related to. So it's going to spin up Postgres and run all these database regression tests, and it's going to spin up test coverage, whole sets of tests. It's going to do a whole bunch of front end and accessibility testing. And so there's a lot more going on, but it shows, it kind of shows you what the real world, or not real world, but like a complex real world application might look like.
And so each of these stages, we define these in our YAML file. We just happen to call them the same things as
yes. And so and I never kind of talked about that.
Do that. Yeah,
they don't have to be named the same. You could say deploy prod, right? You might have so for instance, there might be, you might have a deploy stage, and you might have deploy staging, like to a staging environment, and deploy prod. And then you, again, use that only flag to say, deploy staging whenever we merge to main, but only deploy to prod when we tag, or something like that, right? Like whatever your workflow typically is, you can define that whole workflow in that YAML so that it happens the way you expect it to.
Oh, that is super cool. I love that. All right. Aspirational values here get our photo app as scaled up.
I don't know. I can show you like a middle ground one maybe someday. That might be a little much.
Sounds good. Well, I know Big Pod on stream. He's a huge GitLab fan, and he talks to us about it all the time. So I'm sure he has some pretty cool examples.
And Graham in chat says these GitLab pipelines look nice, like Jenkins, but without the horror.
As someone who used to have to run a Jenkins server, I couldn't agree more.
Oh yeah. I've got that T-shirt too.
Yeah, we've got some horror stories. All right, so our deploy stage completed, and so now we are good to go. So I think the last kind of fun thing that we can look at is if we bump over here, we go to Google Cloud Run. And we can see, so here's where I was kind of testing before in the Flask, blah, blah, blah. But now I see my GitLab CI test. I'm sure this is kind of small. Do my best to zoom in for people. on chat, but here I have GitLab CI test, and if I click into that, this is in my Google Cloud Run infrastructure, and Google Cloud's actually giving me a little URL over here that I can pop into, and I hit that, and look, hello with a W in JSON.
Nice.
So pretty nice. So, I mean, I know we're going to have a hard stop at 4 here. So I think this is like a pretty good completed thing. I think we're well set up now. We have our GitLab YAML. We kind of know that we can add our own stages. So we have to do some ideation around what we actually want our pipeline to look like. And then we need to figure out how to sort of ship the entire multi-container app, not just this little backend app file, and get our Postgres and our Nginx and all that kind of stuff set up. So, but I think we're in a good place to do that. So thanks, Brendan. That was really cool to see.
Yeah, thank you for filling in some of the gaps on the history as well there. That was very interesting.
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful to know, right? Like it's, where the tool comes from can help explain like a lot of how you got to where you were, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, so let me know as you're going through that if you need help. Well, when you need help, probably. No offense to you, but you'll hit some. We just saw how complex it can get, right? Like, so when you do need help, like let me know. I'm happy to help. And my hard stop is there could be a kid entering at any moment into my door, so just be prepared.
Nice. I just had a dog enter unexpected, so but I didn't drop the ball on the demo. So
back here she is. Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
Parenting.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yes.
Come in. Hi. There's a little one coming in.
Oh,
hello.
Nice.
This is my next meeting, so.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, all
Looks
right.
important.
Well, that's an important one to get to. Well, we will make sure you can get to that. Well, Brendan, you joined us in Discord, so thanks for doing that. We are making a commitment to actually, like anybody that comes on stream with us, we're going to hook up sort of like a stream notification. So when you stream, people kind of know when you're streaming, and people can join and learn more about Go and Tio Bruno bot and all of that. So, we'll hit you up on Twitter and on stream and on Discord. But yeah, super cool having you on. So
great. Well, thanks. Yeah, I was happy to be here, and it was a great time.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Brendan. What I'll do is I'll switch the view over so it's just Pete and I, and Brendan can say farewell, and we'll see you soon, Brendan. Always a pleasure. Bye for now.
See you later, O'Leary crew. Yep. Bye-bye.
There we go. So
first kid on SlimDevOps Twitch, I think. So
yeah. So Pete was just talking
no,
about...
Eric's our podcast's son was on that one time as well.
Yes, he has made an appearance. Yeah. Yes, So talking of Eric, who goes by our podcast in chat, what Pete was just describing there is we're going to add a section to our Discord server for those people in the community that are regular live streamers that are doing sort of development focused streams. We're going to put notifications out when they go live so that our community can see what else is going on the developer landscape. So, Brendan will be in there, and also Eric and Yannick, who's not here with us today, but he's a regular streamer. So yeah, we'll get that set up probably by tomorrow. So starting next week, you should see your streams get announced in the Slim.AI Discord.
Cool. All right. Well, really cool. So for next week, I will not be here. I will be in Puerto Rico. Sorry, everybody. But it is cold here in Massachusetts, and I need some warm sunshine. So what do you have in store for next week for the stream?
I'm gonna put Big Pod on the spot here, and I'm gonna suggest that Big Pod and I do a stream. And I was thinking, Big Pod's been doing a lot of work on the examples, the Docker Slim examples. There's lots of updated and new examples there. And I thought maybe Big Pod could go through some Docker Slim examples from his bag of recent experiences. So
that sounds really cool.
That's what I'm proposing. And Big Pod, you're on the ticket now.
I think it's really cool. I'll say I've been looking through some of those examples, and it's kind of just a cool way to like get exposed to other programming languages that you haven't known, because there's so many of them. There's so many different languages. So even if you're just looking at sort of the Hello World apps or the basic setups, it's kind of cool to see. I know Big Pod was working on a Maven app, which is, am I going to get this wrong? Mongo, Express, Vue, and Node. So I might be getting that wrong, but and it was just cool to see. I hadn't really seen Vue hooked up to Mongo before, so I learned some from that, and just some cool examples there. So yeah, that sounds interesting. So sorry I'll miss it, but I'll be by the beach sipping
it's hard life
cocktails or something. So, yeah.
Good for you.
Awesome.
Right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Let's just see if any of our friends are streaming at the moment. No, sadly not. Sadly not. Okay. I'm
not sure if Fex for Life is still streaming. This is going to be an aside, but big news in the fantasy gaming world for anybody who shares that affliction with me. But Elden Ring coming out tomorrow, so
oh right,
I might be coming down with a little something, but no, just kidding. My wife doesn't let me take days off to play video games anymore. But that's been kind of the hot stream this morning. It's been people doing the previews of the Elden Ring early plays and stuff like that. So.
Excellent. All right. Okay. Well, I know nothing. It's not a genre of game that I know anything about. Although my daughter's expressing an interest in all of that sort of fantasy stuff. So I have learned that there is a board gaming like bar in town. Specifically set up for sort of D&D and fantasy board games. So I am going to learn about this because we're going to be taking her up there at some point soon to go and figure out how it all works.
Nice. Yeah, it's fun. The D&D community is pretty fun. It's like they're good people. Every once in a while, like you run into some people who either take it too seriously or something like that. But it's a good way to kind of get to know people and get introduced to fun games and stuff like that. It's very creative. So that'll be cool. So.
Right.
All right. Well, sounds good.
With that, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you all very much for stopping by. If you have any questions about anything that we discussed today, then you can head to our Discord. Brendan's in there. You can, ask him directly or just ask in general. I'm sure we'll be able to service your inquiries, not least because Big Pod, who's here in chat, that's Primosh, who's on our engineering team, is also an experienced GitLab CI user. So between us, we will be able to field any inquiries that you might have. Right, so we will see you the same time, same place next week, if not sooner. Big Pod and I are going to show you how to slim a load of different languages and ecosystems. That should be fun. And if you head to community.slim.ai, I've got some tutorials up there on how to sort of bridge the gap between slimming and making sure that, the slimming process works well for you, which is also useful and applicable to what we'll be showing in Discord soon with the minification in the Slim.AI platform. So, get in Discord, sign up for notifications, because we'll announce that in the coming days to do an office hours in there where we show off how minification works in the web platform.
All right, awesome. That sounds exciting. So
excellent. Right. Well, thank you all. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.